Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. This is Nam out the DC camp, a branch of Great Millstone, back for another video. But first and foremost, call hello Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, Hashem Kodash, the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone, who are well. Salutations also go out to the fellow Akim that are out there on the highways and byways, pushing the truth across four corners of this earth. Not to mention, along with numerous videos that are uploaded and that help further push this word out across four corners. Alright. Thought I'd do, while it still remains a little time left in this day, do a video on this demon here. And this is from Science Alert. And also, let me do this real quick. Alright, this is copyright. As soon as it comes up. This is the copyright disclaimer. It says under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use. Alright. For purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research, which is what I'm doing. Alright. So not profiting, nor do I intend to profit off of this whatsoever. This is just used as a teaching instrument. This is fair use is a use permitted by copyright statutes that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Alright, there we go. Alright. Again, so they say in this article, and we have come up with this on our own just by what little we can and have over time been able to glean from this person's nature. Alright. And it fits that. Really doesn't matter where he's from, Genoa, or as in this case, what we're going to get to is what we have always speculated. And I got it somewhere, I don't know, an article years ago that this guy did, and he too was like, he was disgusted once he researched this guy. Now his take on it was that the more he learned about this guy, the more sickening he became. But the thing is, what he came up with was that this guy, because everyone thinks that he was a wool merchant. No. This person stole the identity. Now, they were aware of each other. Alright, but this guy, once the wool merchant died at sea, this particular person that we've always thought was Cristobal Colon assumed his identity, and that fits the MO of a particular people. Alright. Yeah, that's where I'm going with this. But let's do this article. So it says on February 22nd, February 1498, a well-weathered mid-40s Christopher Columbus ordained in writing that his estate in the Italian port city of Genoa would be maintained with his family because from it I came and in it I was born. Though most historians regard the document to be a cut and dried record of the famed explorer's birthplace, some have questioned its authenticity, and wondered if there is more to the story. A decades-long investigation led by forensic scientist Jose Antonio Lorente from the University of Granada in Spain has now come out in support of claims that Columbus may not be of Italian heritage after all, but was actually born somewhere in Spain to parents of Jewish ancestry. Because the thing is, the story that we were always fed, how he was able to, first of all, you can't be a low-level person and be granted audience of the king and queen. All right, so you would have to have some pull or connection somewhere. All right. Anyway, the revelation was announced as part of a special program broadcast in Spain to celebrate Columbus's arrival in the New World on 12 October 1492. It's important to keep in mind that science by media ought to be viewed with caution, especially when there isn't a peer-reviewed publication to critically examine. Unfortunately, from a scientific point of view, we can't really evaluate what was in the documentary because they have offered no data from the analysis whatsoever. All right, skipping down. My conclusion is that the documentary never shows Columbus's DNA, and as scientists, we don't know what analysis was undertaken. Nonetheless, historical documents are increasingly being challenged and bolstered by forensic analysis of biological records, raising the possibility that Columbus's own DNA could potentially reveal insights into his family history. Based on interpretation of records written when he was an adult, the man known throughout much of the Western world by the anglicized name Christopher Columbus was born Cristoforo Colombo sometime between late August and late October in 1451 in Genoa, the bustling capital of the northwestern Italian region of Liguria. It was only later in life, as a young man in his 20s, that he traveled west to Lisbon, Portugal, in search of affluent patrons who might fund his audacious attempt to take a shortcut to the east by heading in completely the other direction, which, if you have any sense, would make no sense. Alright, so there must be another or ulterior motive. What could that be? Alright. Though most historians accept the court documents placing his birthplace in Genoa as the real deal, speculation of an alternative heritage has been floated for decades. One persistent rumor maintains Columbus was covertly Jewish, born in Spain at the time of intense religious persecution and ethnic cleansing. Supporters of the claim cite curious abnormalities in his will and interpretations of the syntax in his letters. Now, it appears his own genes may provide a new line of evidence. All right. Lorente and his team of researchers claimed in the televised special that their analysis of Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA taken from the remains of Columbus's son Ferdinand and brother Diego is compatible with a Spanish or Sephardic Jewish heritage. This doesn't categorically rule out Genoa, of course, nor does it pin down any one place in Europe as a place of birth for the explorer. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if he was really, technically it doesn't, whether he was born in Portugal or Spain or Genoa, Italy. We're talking about the same people but different tribes. All right. Just as the Israelites have different tribes to the whole nation, so does Edom. All right. All you have to do is read Genesis 36 chapter. All right. Indeed, Jews exiled from Spain at the end of the 15th century, just as Columbus was making his landmark voyage, flooded into the Italian city seeking asylum, albeit with few succeeding. But any merit to Lorente's findings would make Columbus's Italian origin a little harder to support. All right, raising questions of how somebody of Sephardic Jewish heritage would come to be born in Genoa in the 1450s. For the findings to become widely adopted, the results would need to be carefully scrutinized, if not convincingly replicated in detail. Even then, there's more to an individual story than genetics, leaving open this case of how an individual from a persecuted minority truly came to represent the spearhead of Spanish expansion. For now, the story of Columbus remains one of an Italian sailor who caught the eye of Spanish royalty. Really? And for the longest, that's been the accepted uh, version of the story. All right, who came to be both celebrated and scorned for the mark he inadvertently made on history. Far from inadvertently, no, and that's why. Let's go to because it wasn't inadvertent at all. Like I said, he fits. Um, let's go to Habakkuk, because you got to understand this is the time of the Renaissance, where we were brought down and they were being raised up. All right, and this fits that also that Revelation 20th chapter. All right, this is what happened when they were brought. Let's see, hold on, because here we're talking about verses 4. These are the people. All right. It says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith." These were the people set up, all right, to punish us. After all, this is when that, uh, like I say, they were brought out and set loose to deceive what? The world, to deceive the nations. And this is what they have done ever since. This is the beginning. Yet also because he transgresses by wine his philosophy, his doctrines, which they did establish. All right, this is when the beginnings, when they had their scientists. This is right before uh, Pope Alexander and all them. They were living at the same time, but this is right before. It's during the same time actually. Where you had Cesare and all that happening. All right, in their images, as it says in First Maccabees 3:48. In fact, let's get that real quick and I'll come back to this. All right, where we got? There we go. All right. This is First Maccabees 3. Scroll on down here. And 48. It says right here. All right. And laid open the book of the law, which is what? The scriptures, right? The holy scriptures. Wherein the heathen, which they are, had sought to paint the likeness of their images. And this wasn't the first time, of course. We'll have to go back to the time of Alexander the Great and thereafter, where his people ruled. And a certain individual by the name of Antiochus Epiphanes IV. And our people, the beginning of our people being Hellenized. All right. And our people being forbidden to practice our heritage, our religion, all right? And what did Ptolemy, who ruled Egypt at the time, what did he do? They took on those customs of the ancient Egyptians and put themselves in their stead, which is something that an Edomite does. All right, this is throughout history. All you have to do is do your research. All right. Ptolemy was known also as the Silver King. All right. And they, as they often do, they superimpose throughout history their images for certain periods like they were the originals. And we know they're not. But again, this fits that profile. This is what they do. Again, First Maccabees 3:48. And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen that sought to paint the likeness of their images. All right. 49. They brought also the priests' garments and the first fruits and the tithes and the Nazarites they stirred up, who had accomplished their days. So this is something we know that it's a pattern. It just repeats and repeats, and they did it again in the 8th century AD. All right, when they converted to Judaism. Well, I jumped ahead of myself. So, roughly from the time of Antiochus Epiphanes the Fourth, we're talking about circa 164 BC. Another 30 years. Let's see. Let's just say 35 to be. So you had John Hyrcanus, and these Edomites, so-called white people, were forcefully converted to Judaism, then what became Judaism, because they put their own spin on it. All right. So fast forward another 800 years or better, and this is where you have the Kagan, the Caucasus Mountains, all of that, and that's what we're dealing with today. The Ishis, all right, and they've twisted things. You had the Masoretes. Once you get to studying that, and the first line of their rabbis, the mid 11th century. The second one, one of the most famous and revered by those devils, is the second of those, go by the name of Rabbi Rashi. All right, and when you read his writings, the hatred that he had toward us, it's evident. All right, and that's just how they are. Now, this, of course, article doesn't nothing much else to it, but this is what we're still suffering from, this devil's exploits. He and others that came after him, to include his son Diego, all right, who actually had to sue on behalf of his father's estate because they screwed him over. Not to give a fuck, but hey, this is who you're dealing with. They can't even trust each other. All right, and that still goes on today. It's just Jake is just that glue that binds. They can go to war with each other, but at the end of the day, they'll manage to come together in order to come against us, to thwart anything that we're trying to do positive. We're under the curses. But this is going to be a short video. Again, this is from ScienceAlert.com. DNA reveals a surprise twist about Christopher Columbus. I wish I had found that old article that I dug up. Man, this is around, my goodness, 2007. God, I gotta look for that. But this guy said the more he researched this guy, it's just the more disgusting. This guy was a piece of work, and he dug into it. I just can't remember everything that he said, except that this guy had assumed Cristobal, the wool merchant that drowned at sea, that he had assumed his identity. And that sounds just like something these devils do. They're known for. All right, because in that region they had there were people known as the name stealers. When you research it, that Moab, your present-day Chinese, and which would include the Mongolians, they would, deal with. They would wine you and dine you and then end up poisoning you and, take your identity. Who does that sound like? So here we go. This place is falling apart. This devil's, reign is coming to an end, and he knows it. He senses it. That's why he's going to act more and more stupid now. All right, because as we bring out in Revelation chapter 12, verse 12, he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And that's why you're seeing what you're seeing, especially here in America. It's happening worldwide, because we're talking about a people, we're talking about a system that's interconnected, but specifically here in America, where even his own fellow Edomites can't stand the American Edomite. All right, yeah. But that's prophecy. That's prophecy. That's Revelation 17 there. They shall hate the whore. The whore being America. Oh, yeah. it's going down, and there's nothing they can do. So that's going to be it for this video. Once again, DNA reveals a surprise twist about Christopher Columbus. All right, and in that, once again, I hope whoever views this video is edified. And this is almost to the day, being a year that this article was all right. So once again, keep your head on a swivel, remain circumspect, and to the next video. Shalom.